We are Tiny Talks Tuesday, Health in the Making, and today we are discussing what is good hydration. I am Ella Mesmer. I am a yoga teacher, a dance artist, and I run a project called Business Yoga, which is all about putting wellness at the heart of the workplace. And I'm very excited to have joined up with Rory. We're both passionate about the same things, and we would love to share with you our insights and some learnings every other Tuesday. So it's great to have you here. Over to Rory Lemonade.
Hi there, my name's Rory Lemonade and I'm an osteopath, and I have specialist interests in helping people with chronic conditions such as stress-related chronic conditions especially, and I'm also dyslexic, so you might hear some papers rustling, and trying to get my words in the right order in a short space of time is one of the challenges I deal with. So I'm always writing things down and getting things out on paper as quick as I can, and just to get through life. So yes. So yeah,
here is my cup of green tea. And when it comes to hydration, I really, when we started this topic, I was like, oh yeah, drinking loads of water. And then I got a little bit of surprise, as I'm often surprised by Rory Lemonade, because you've got a lot to say about this topic, and it's not just about water to reduce thirst, right? It's about much more than that.
correct, absolutely. But in fact, I'll just put a question to you, Ella, and also the viewers, and that's a good point. If there's people watching, put questions in the comments and we can have a look at them afterwards. But apart from water, do you know of any other ways to hydrate?
I know. Let's just give a bit of a moment in case anyone wants to type something. I've got a favourite though. I'm a little bit obsessed with watermelons. And I feel like there's so much. I'm thinking of like the vegetables and the fruits that are very water based. So watermelons, and the other one I'm thinking of is coconuts. Especially, like if you're on an amazing beach in Brazil and you're feeling dehydrated, and remember them saying something about electrolytes, like it's almost like you will hydrate quicker with coconut water. Is that correct?
Yes, and there's a lot of different types of substrates and electrolytes that are in water that that we will go into. Absolutely. So yes, electrolytes is exactly the thing, but there are other things that also, and I'll explain this now, because what happens is that when we break it down to sort of particle levels, it's about particle charge. So when we talk about that, there's negatively charged particles that give off electrons, and for us that helps to balance our blood pH and replenish our muscles and nerves for refiring. So it can basically be a fluid chemical reaction thing that we need from the electrons, and it can also be direct electrons that go to a much more electrical firing tissues like muscles and nerves as well.
Okay.
So blood pH, like body temperature, needs to be in a very kind of certain narrow range in order for the chemical reactions to occur efficiently within our blood and body, which helps us to either break down or build up muscles and nerves and cells and tissues. So it's called hydration because of the hydrogen atoms in the water that can either carry electrons or give them off freely, depending on whether there's a charge going on or a chemical reaction that requires electrons or giving them off again, depending on it's building or breaking.
So it's like they're either building up or they're breaking down, depending on what you put into your body.
Absolutely, yeah. Lots of different environmental factors, and hydrogen ion is the simplest of elements. It's the first one in the periodic table, so it walks around and just takes one electron or gives it off, and it's
being a hydrogen element.
It can be one.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, so it gives them off or takes them back depending on what type of chemical reaction is happening. Okay. And we can do a fun demo on that, in fact.
Yay. I feel like we're going back to, do you remember Sesame Street and they do the fun demos? We're
Yeah,
like
exactly,
Ernie
exactly.
and Big Bird. Yes.
Yeah, sure. So Ella, you are a hydrogen atom, okay?
Yes, I
Simple
am.
all
Here
elements,
I am having a little bit of fun.
and you are negatively charged,
Oh no.
and but that's a good thing,
Okay,
because
good.
you're carrying an electron. Well, it's good for
Okay,
us.
so
It's good
I'm
for,
happy. Yay.
you're carrying an electron.
Okay, good. I
Let's see
am.
that.
Here is my
Wow.
electron. So this is a negative electron.
Well, all electrons are negative, you see. So,
Amazing.
um, uh,
Minus. See the minus there.
yeah. So you've been ingested into the viewer's blood, for instance, and you're carrying this electron, and I'm a positively charged particle
Oh,
in
hey, positive
inside
particle.
the viewer's, say, for instance,
Okay,
nerve cell. And
awesome.
because electricity, which is made of pure electrons, traveling from negative to positive. So it's there always. Electricity is always there to try to get. Well, it's by law of nature. It has to flow to the positive charge to balance it out. That's why they're drawn that way.
Mm.
So when you've entered the body, and at a certain point, you must pass me the electron.
So
So
it's making me think of, like if you have ice and it melts because it's gonna match room temperature. Is it kind of like that? Is that why I have to pass you this
yes,
electron? So
yes.
here it
So
comes.
wow. And
Whoa,
now
you're shiny and bright.
and now the nerve cell has been lit up, or at least recharged.
Oh, can you bring that beautiful nerve cell back because it looks so happy and shiny? So is
Ah!
that nerve cell positive or negative or balanced?
It's
What's
now
happened to it?
balanced. Well, the thing is that these electrons are just flying about all over the place, part of the chemical reaction. So it will get used up in our nerves firing, but it needed it to recharge before. But the electron could also go to our muscle cells, or just go to any chemical reaction that's happening in the body too.
Mm. It's kind of making me think about in yoga, we talk about like what we're doing in yoga is we're yoking. Yeah, so in yoga we unite, and we often talk about like the masculine and the feminine energy within the body, and that we want to balance the two energies within the body to become whole. We need to acknowledge all sides of us. Does that feel like a relevant demonstration?
It's well, yes. I mean, you can always relate one thing with another in terms of that sounds like a psychological thing to still see about how we look at, because it goes right down to the positive and negative,
Mm,
and that's how our brain works as well. We think about positive and negative, or yin and yang, or
yeah.
opposing forces, but they're just things that are interchanging all the time as well.
Mm.
So yes, if you break it right down
Interessante.
to that point, it doesn't necessarily mean it's how to describe it really. But yeah, I can see how it's useful to look at things as a whole, and embrace the changes that are happening
Mm.
as a whole too.
Well,
But yeah,
I loved the demonstration, and I love the fact that that means that the nerve is charged up and ready to fire again, ready to go,
yes,
energized.
yeah. So furthermore, those electrons can be used up in our body more than we have, because they're there to neutralize the positively charged particles in, say, for instance, acidic foods, or
Hmm.
environmental factors such as free radicals or radiation.
Hmm.
Even a pool of inflammation that's there to help um, repair our tissues is positively charged. So it needs electrons to help it calm back down again. Um,
Ah, so our tension in our body, you know, I'm starting to see the connection of tension in the muscles and the importance of hydration.
is Yeah, hydration. Yeah, it's about, I mean, we're being as basic as possible to get some understanding going on. There's so much other complex things going on, but and also information is important to do the healing, so it needs to be that way. So it's not that one thing is worse than the other. Like, we go back to the whole what is bad or good. It's what's better or worse. It's
I see.
what's functioning, what's dysfunctioning, or is it just how things are changing,
Yeah.
but they can go of dysfunction due to accumulation.
Learning to listen.
One other thing that can also be positively charging or making our blood acidic is a lot of glucose. Glucose coming into the system either through foods or through stressful spikes, because the cortisol gets us ready to run away from the threat. That puts our blood sugars up. It takes it from areas in the body, so we can either bring out glucose out of our system to get ready to run away from the threat, or we can be eating too much at one time and get a spike of glucose that way, and that can make our blood too, so that can reduce our electrons. So it's an interesting fact that the brain constantly listens and analyzes our blood pH when it when it shoots up, then the pH shoots into acidic mode, for instance, such as ingesting the sugars and or the cortisol spikes. It sends messages to release emergency hormones to release the calcium out of our bones. That is there to balance our blood pH in the moment. So the thing about, if you are gorging on fizzy sugary drinks, you could potentially be affecting your bones, and that's one of the causes for osteoporosis later on in life, the excessive sugar consumption.
Yeah. So it'd be really nice to do a session at some point on sugar. I definitely had an addiction to sugar. Luckily it was probably about 11 years ago now, but I went through a phase before I kind of did the work and understood about nutrition where I was really addicted to sugar. And I just think it's such an important thing to raise awareness about, isn't it? Or to understand for ourselves. And like you said, not necessarily judge as good and bad and right or wrong, but just know and make the choices and have the information so we can make the choice that's right for us.
Absolutely. And not worry about it too much, because it's not a one-way street. As you know, you can't say for sure what will happen, but you could potentially, stop some dysfunction in its path and look at the positives and gain some function back, if you've been doing that for a long time, for instance.
So can you recommend, like, what we know? Water, we know watermelon, we know coconut water, but what else? What would you recommend? Like, are there foods that we should be eating?
There's a whole range of other things that give us electrons. And so the hydrogen particles are the carriers when they're negatively charged. But there's a whole load of other things that hydrate our tissues as such, and what gives us electrons, which is obviously the water. Then there's foods, especially raw and alkaline foods, and green foods.
I love green food. I love alkaline foods. So like kale, for example.
Broccoli, spinach, all the dark ones. The chlorophyll in it is the dark green stuff in dark greens. So
the good ones.
That really helps us to, and it's that same thing in nature where the trees are breathing the oxygen out, and we're getting that. And it's the same thing in when we're eating the greens. It's just an evolutionary process. I feel that it's helping us to balance back. And it's a sort of, like you were talking about, the harmony again. So
awesome.
So other things that do that are like the naturally occurring vitamin C is negatively charged in terms of got the extra electrons to give off, even though it's called an acid. It's actually still got this electron floating around in it. There's also electrolytes that we talked about.
Yeah.
As well as these are all natural antioxidants. So, and then there's the salts and minerals found in foods and sea air and sea. And so we can absorb minerals through our skin much better than we can eat it as well.
So get yourself to the beach.
Yeah. So there's the natural occurring minerals in the main ones are sodium, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. And magnesium.
I love magnesium.
Yeah, it's the relaxation mineral, or has been found to be the main one, but obviously they're all quite important for bodily processes. So It's the main one for helping switch off muscles again after they've been used and calming down nerves again. So
Awesome. So I will be posting some links for some great magnesium products. I am a massive fan of making my little magnesium drinks.
excellent. Say so. So some people say that touching the ground with the hands and the skin, pure bare skin, will dramatically replenish electrons within our system in the moment. And then there's importantly carbon dioxide as well. That is a big role in blood pH balance. So optimum carbon dioxide levels in the blood keep our blood acidity regulated. And as discussed in our last tiny talk, number 4, the poor prolonged stress related breathing patterns over time can lead to a learned lack of CO2 in the blood. So the brain gets used to it being short and let's go. We feel like we're running out of breath because we've learnt to feel like we're running out of breath, not because that CO2 is bad. And in our blood, so the slowing it, that can slow down our chemical reactions and reduce the oxygen's capacity to get to the tissues. And
by the way, when Rory says COD, he's talking about carbon dioxide.
Yeah, CO2.
CO2.
And then the lack of that could also be increasing the muscle tension and the nerve function. So how do we know it's not just the fact that how we're breathing that causes all these tensions and things and lack of chemical reactions in the body? So it's a major thing. That's why I go to that as a thing to check out for people if we're thinking about what's going on in their life.
Interesting.
So it's now one of my favorite things to go to is breathing patterns.
And you can check out more about Rory and the amazing techniques he uses to help you with your general well-being, which we will talk about later.
So breath hold work such as Kundalini yoga and expert and Buteyko breathing methods, which I've been studying.
What Rory does.
I've been studying with I did the initial classical Buteyko breathing method introduction course, and this can help retrain the brain to allow optimum levels of CO2 back in over time again. It takes time, it's a practice, and it's not necessarily easy, but we can go through a little test at the end of here about a little test and a little show of how that process you could start to think about at least.
Awesome. Looking forward to that.
On. And so, yeah. Next, the final thought on hydration by water alone could be possibly flushing out some of those minerals through the kidneys. If your system, is if you're taking that into your system excessively, just on its own. So, and that's also depending on your lifestyle condition and state of blood. That's why it's good to have a variety of hydration techniques that we talked about here too.
I see. So, we've kind of covered the variety of hydration techniques. I feel like we're kind of clear on that. Would you agree? Is there anything you want to add to those suggestions? Any questions from the audience?
I'd love to hear any other ideas as well. Yeah, for sure.
If not, it would be really cool to hear about some breathing techniques. But do you want to add anything, Rory, on hydration?
If you're talking about water, then again, it depends on your situation, your general size, as to how much you might need throughout the day. If you're drinking more than 4 liters a day and you're hydrating in other ways and you're still thirsty, it might be worth checking in with your doctor or holistic nutritional therapist or osteopath. And the best times to drink water is in the morning on an empty stomach, so it can get straight through the stomach into the gut and flush things out a little bit into the tissues. So that's a good point to drink, a decent amount of water before you eat, because when you eat, you need water to digest stuff. So it draws water, so you could be dehydrating yourself before you hydrate. And
I do that as well. My little morning routine is get up, brush teeth, drink water, and then I actually won't eat for quite a while because I think there's something about that just allowing the hydration to happen.
yes, yes. And finally, other times that are good in the day is before and after exercise or
Mm,
sauna when you're sweating a lot, and before bed as well. People think that they might drink water and then need the toilet more, but actually, um, it's important to drain your tissues and help them again hydrate overnight. So maybe it's better to drink a bit more
awesome.
water and then get up after a deeper sleep rather than be more sleeping lighter anyway and waking up earlier because you might be dehydrated.
Sure,
So,
that makes a lot
but
of sense.
but also not just the water. It could be a breathing technique that you do before you sleep to hydrate as well. Now that you know that.
Helpful technique. Thank you, Rory. So, are you going to show us a breathing technique today? We always like to close with a little demonstration, a little experience that you can step into. So, I think today, Rory, you have a breathing technique to show us.
Yes, for sure. I'd like to just explain quickly about the control pause in the Buteyko breathing method, which is just a way of checking to see how much CO2 is in your system at that moment, or whether your brain is sensing other stuff. And as well,
Amazing.
it's very complicated in a way, but to keep it simple, you can it's not just one reading that tells you instantly about everything. You have to check your control pause regularly throughout the day, 4 times a day if you're looking at to do something to change something. And also
Mm,
guidance is really important as well on this. So if you're looking about
okay.
changing your health with breath work, it's much better to be, or even looking at health conditions, chronic conditions, it's much better to be running that with someone that knows what they're talking about, because you can get drifted off or not do things accurately. And we're just doing a little
Hmm.
taster here, okay? So a control pause is a comfortable breath hold until you feel you need to, just before you need to feel like you want to breathe in again. And you can time that. So for instance, if you just comfortably breathe in, not all the way, not strong, just breathe in comfortably to the end range on a relax, and then breathing out to neutral, and then holding the nose, you can time it a bit. So I'm not going to carry on going, but basically, uh, there's different when you feel like it's comfortable to breathe in, then that's basically to not rush the air when you come back to breathing in again. So that's
Hmm.
where you can check it. I wasn't going into the longevity of that process, but I wanted to say that you can do a breath hold, and a lot of people that haven't done this it might be quite short, and so you've got to sort of really play around with it and try different types of breathing techniques as well. So without going into too much detail, the control pause is a way to check that. And so that was a little test, but you can also hold your breath for short amount of time. So we'll do a little breath hold, and then you can basically breathe in like a little mouse, fast, light, as long as the breath is really light. Or you
Hmm.
can breathe in again light, long, and slow, but that actually creates more air exchange. So it all depends on about whether you're going to feel uncomfortable. You don't want to create too much uncomfort unless you're again being monitored by an expert and all that sort of stuff, because you don't want to cause too much stress
Hmm.
in the system when you're doing breath hold work. And it's difficult to know how, it's different for every person.
Sure.
So let's just do that again. So let's just do, say for instance, let's do 15 seconds hold,
Amazing.
breath in, breath out first, hold. Seems like quite a long time for some people. And then you're going to go,
Oh, you're doing the mouse. Is that the mouse?
yeah, you can do it
Right.
in a way that's very sort of but try to relax everything as much as you can as well. So you're basically creating not very much air exchange, so that you don't blow off too much carbon dioxide once you've started to store it back in.
Oh,
If that
interesting.
makes sense.
Mm.
So that's one way to just increase your carbon dioxide lightly, and then you can come back to, and you might feel like you want to take a deep breath, and it's okay to, but you've got to try to sort of get to that level of where it's not too tense, where you don't feel too suffocating, as it were, but you just play around with it. It can actually feel like a buzz that's nice,
Mm-hmm.
or it can feel, like I say, tense. You don't want to push too hard. It's that playing around with it. If you've not done it before, then it can be really interesting to play around with it, but also, yeah. So you don't want to overdo it too quickly.
I have a question.
Yes.
Um, so you inhale, you exhale, and then you're holding your breath out for those
It's
15
it's
seconds?
a neutral point.
A
Yeah.
neutral point.
So when you breathe in and then you just relax till you're not squeezing the air all the way out.
Okay.
But wherever you test the control pause, the whole point is to do it the same each time. So that's why a neutral point is. And sometimes if you take a deep breath in and hold, you're going to have more air in your lungs to hold for longer. So it's going to give you bigger numbers.
Yeah,
It's
which
about
is
wherever you do it, and the classical Buteyko breathing method is about doing it neutral, so you get a true representation, and you're relaxed and not sort of
mm-hmm.
like holding or squeezed out and wanting to breathe in. And because if you squeeze out and you
Super
hold,
interesting.
you might rush it back in too quick. It's
Yeah.
about that light breathing. So it's tiny mouth, or just really dropped, and just pulling the diaphragm in slowly, so the air doesn't exchange quickly. And then again, you're monitoring how you feel as you go along. So
Super
we could do
interesting.
one more,
Yes,
just as
please.
a final sort of check, because once you've got into it, it's good to just do it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, it's interesting as well because in my training in Kundalini, I'm used to doing long, deep breathing and long inhale and then hold. So I'm having to undo my own patterns to
Yeah,
go with you.
they're all different patterns. They're all different ways of doing things, and actually that sounds quite like how Wim Hof does things. Is to,
Mm.
it's very much like bellows, get as much oxygen and carbon dioxide going on, but probably blowing quite a lot of carbon dioxide off. But you're getting so much, you're getting an oxygen rush. But that's another talk to say.
Okay, let's try this.
Okay, so one more time, we're going to just breathe in normally and out. Go to neutral, hold, relax the head. Really try to relax, because holding yourself can make you feel tense. So wherever you feel you need to breathe in, maybe hold it a couple of seconds and then back to. Because obviously I've been on the talking, so actually it's been, and it's quite, it's not necessarily nerve wracking, but it racks up your nerves when
Yeah,
you're.
it's really interesting. That's what I experienced.
So
I experienced an element of that, and then hearing you going relax was really helpful.
yeah.
And actually
So
at
that's
the
why it's good
end
to have
with
the guide.
the mouse moment, I'm calling it the mouse. I
Yeah.
felt quite like that was quite calming. That had a really calming effect.
Yeah. And you sort of ride that wave of feeling like you want to take a bigger breath, and you do that for as long as you can, but you don't want to get too tense again. So it's that playing around with the tension point and maintaining that for longer periods. And then there's more advanced or intermediate ways of doing things as well once you've got the hang of it. So yeah, it's stuff to play around with.
How can we
Certainly.
learn more? How can we practice with you?
Well, I can assess breathing patterns online, and you can look into the Buteyko breathing, Buteyko breathing techniques.
I'll write it here and we'll put it in the comments as well.
And that basically is, there's different types of practitioners for different areas. So there's some people who work with athletes to keep them up their game. Some people are classical Pukitake breathing methods. Practitioners are sort of helping with people with chronic conditions. So you've kind of got the interplay of two different aspects there. One's at the top of their game, but maybe running out of energy because their breathing pattern is different than they need to keep their energy up. And one is that it's like there's a fatigue issue problem or some kind of chronic issue problem. You need to do that in a different way. It's a similar method, but different ways of doing. So it's all individual to the person. I can at least see how I could work with training breathing patterns or pass on to someone that I think is more specialist if necessary, depending on the type of person.
Beautiful.
Sorted.
I also, if anyone is interested, I'm actually teaching a Kundalini class this evening, and we are going to focus on long, deep breathing. So if you want to sample a slightly different breathing technique, then do come along. You can find the link in my bio, and I'll also post the link. It's been beautiful, Rory. I always learn things with you, and it was very fun to be able to feel like Big Bird and Ernie for a moment.
Yeah, exactly. And it takes appreciation from another side for it to work as well, because I learn things from just being able to talk and find things that you question and ask too. So it's all good. It's all good learning, isn't it? And
it is. We will be back in 2. If you ever have a request of something you want to learn more about, if you want to quiz the amazing mind of Rory, if you want to ask a more yogic kind of journey of a question, then just get in touch and we would love to help. We would love to be of service. So thank you, Rory. Thank you, everyone.
No worries. Let's make it better.
Yes. One of those. See you next time.